Welcome to Creative Leadership Skills That Drive Change Author Update. We're really thrilled today, all of you in cyberspace with us. Hey, all our students and all our alum, really glad you're here. Our studio audience today is CRS 670 students, some faculty, some alums, so we're really glad you're here with us today as well. But welcome to Marie Mance, who is the Director of Leadership Development
Thank you.
here at Buffalo State College, and of course an alum of Creative Studies, and Gerard Puccio, Director of the International Center for Studies in Creativity.
Wow, you got it right.
I did!
Yeah. That's the first time.
Yeah, I know. Mark that off. And via Skype from North Carolina, we have a hey out to Dr. Mary Murdoch, Associate Professor. So, you there, Mary? Okay. We're not hearing her yet. So something went with...
Bad.
Oh, there you are. Now we got you. Now we got you.
And speak up.
So I've asked the three authors to come in today for several reasons. One, in our third course in the creative process strand, CRS 670, it is our text. So wow, what a great thing to have the authors come in. In 625 distance course, which is current issues in creativity, those students obviously are looking at current issues. And our three authors have been working on updates for the second edition. And so I've asked them to just come and talk a bit about it. And some of it, maybe they're thinking, like at the moment, because they're still really putting together their thoughts and they're not to the point where what they'll present today, at least I don't think what you'll present today is the final. It's some of the thinking shared with our community. So I welcome you, and thanks for coming.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity, and I just want to reinforce what you just mentioned, Sue.
Yeah.
This is as recent as like 9:45 and making notes, at least to myself, over a cup of coffee. But no, we have an opportunity. Marie, Mary, and I, last spring, we were invited to think about a second edition. Fortunately, the book is doing well, and the publisher is interested in getting an updated version out. So we started our discussion last spring, but have been working all the way along as recent, literally as Thursday. Marie and I met to look at some of the revisions, and so it's ongoing. We may discover, undoubtedly, some new thoughts as we're having our conversation today, which is a great thing. So this is unrehearsed for the most part.
Yeah.
It's live, and you'll see us maybe discovering some thoughts as we articulate them, which is really a good thing for us. So it's a nice opportunity. The questions that were generated were, I know, very helpful for me as I started to review those. It helped me kind of sharpen my own thinking. So we're happy to be here.
Great, thanks. And I did neglect to say, if you are listening on the web, you may keep your cell phone on. You can have your radio going. Those of us in the audience, make sure you silence your cell phones so that we go. So we're gonna turn it over to Marie first, and then you all can do whatever you want here.
Okay. Thanks.
The format, I probably should say that, Marie. The format is we're going to have about an hour discussion with the three authors and let them talk back and forth. And then we'll take a 15-minute break. At about 11:15, we're going to open it to questions to those on the web and to our two authors here in the studio. Mary won't be with us on Skype that second half, so we will open it to questions. So if you think of something, and the 670 students came up with some great questions already. But again, any questions you think of, just jot them down, and we'll have some time to answer some in the second half.
Okay. So, I'm going to start with the story. Hopefully not a bedtime story to put anyone to sleep, but I think a little bit about this backstory, as it's been called, as like the DVD where you get the special feature and the making of the movie, and you hear about all the things that you would never have known. It was going to be on a different location and different stars, and We obviously have been through the experience of writing this book, and there are a lot of things that you wouldn't know that either went into our thinking. I noticed a couple of questions about the actual process of writing the book and collaborating. So what I thought I would do is to talk about some content, some process, and really titled The Making of the Book. So as I think back to the beginnings, one of the things that Sue didn't mention was that I am currently an adjunct faculty member. I'm going to be teaching 559 in the spring for the first time in a while. But way back when this story first began, I was actually teaching full-time at the center. And so I taught full-time there for 2 years. And believe it or not, Mary, Gerard, and I were the only full-time faculty at that time. Mm-hmm. We certainly have added other faculty since that time, but the three of us really ended up getting very close and very, very tight as a result of, you know, I kind of think of them as my army buddies, going through the trenches. And so anyway, one of the things that we were sitting in the conference room, and we said we ought to write a book and have it our take on creative problem solving. And this was in 1996, I believe, when we first said that. We all, of course, said yes, 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 we should write this book, and we could collaborate very well together. We know each other, we like each other. Mary and Gerard had collaborated on a number of things, and so we said, yes, let's do that. Fast forward, 8 years later, 6 years later, there was a big gap. I had since not been teaching anymore. I was off with another full-time job on campus, and somehow yes, we're going to do this, faded away. And I don't even remember when it was that we actually recommitted to doing this, but we said, hey, we said we were going to do this, let's do it. So we sat down and we started working on it, and at that time, Gerard went off on a sabbatical. And as Gerard went off on the sabbatical, he had full time to be thinking about this book and how to position it. And one of the things that we knew from working with this material and from working with students was that as students went out after learning about creative problem solving, they said, you know, I'm really much more effective as a leader as a result of the skills that I have learned in creative problem solving. And so as Gerard was kind of ruminating on this and started thinking about making the connection between creativity and leadership very explicit. So when you think about that first chapter of the book, that's really that thinking about creativity, change, and leadership and how they all interact, and helping people to understand the reason why you ought to read this book, and particularly as a leader, is that you in fact will develop skills that you can use in your leadership role. Now we also talk about you know, the difference between the formal role of leader and leadership. So you know, you don't have to be a formal leader in order to use the skills that are in this book. One of the things that struck me as I think about, well, what did I learn from this collaboration? I'll talk a little bit about collaboration. We had a lot of bumps in the road as we collaborated together. And one of the things that I learned from that process is that even though you know people well, there are some things that we know about style, and we need to know about style differences, that once you kind of get in the muck of it, it's live and it's happening. It's a little bit like going traveling with your best friend and finding out that you have different ideas about how to travel. And one person wants to go on the beach and hang out, and the other person really wants to go and see all the sights. And I think that would sort of characterize, I think the thing that struck me the most was when we were doing our first presentation about the book, and Gerard went and put his foresight profile on a chart, and I looked at it and I went, wow, that is the exact opposite of my style. And so it sort of hit me like a 2x4. And I guess the learning from that for me was when you're collaborating, don't assume just because you're friends, just because you've done things before. This was the first time the three of us had collaborated together. And I think for us, one of the turning points in helping us to collaborate was when we did the article for the Korean Journal that looks at the sort of history of creative problem solving, and we got that thing in really quickly and collaborated very well and said, yes, we can do this, and you know, went on from there. I think the strength of the book is from the collaboration. And when we got together and we talked about how each individual saw things and how to add this and add that, and as a result of that, I think there's strength in the book. So,
if I could jump in and build a little bit, to add a little more in terms of the backstory, the book Creative Leadership, which the title didn't come until the very end. We worked for a very long time without a title. Originally, when we had our conversation about doing some work together and writing a book, the focus was exclusively on creative problem solving. And that was the thought also going into the sabbatical for me, was to initiate, get things going in terms of an updated statement, description around creative problem solving. At the same time, there were some changes occurring in our curriculum. Around the very same time, we had launched our graduate certificate program in creativity and change leadership. We had revised our CRS 635, the capstone course for the master's degree, to be more explicit at drawing in leadership and talking about leadership relative to creativity. So sort of in the background were some changes being made in our curriculum. We had talked for some time about the impact of our work on students' leadership skills. There was a master's project that had focused on interviewing graduate students after completing the degree and asking them about, so as you think about the value of this educational experience and what it has done for you and the ways that it has impacted you, one of the resounding themes that came out across the board was around leadership, and that the training, the educational experience, the knowledge that our graduate students had gained was having a profoundly positive influence on their ability to go out and influence others, which I want to reinforce. When we talk about leadership, we're not talking about position. There was a question posed by someone from the 670 class around, I'm not in a position of leadership, how do I influence my organization? Well, when you look at contemporary theories of leadership, one of the common platforms across those views of leadership is that leadership is not strictly about having the title, because you can have a title but not necessarily having a positive influence. Leadership is about what you choose to do. So as we talk about creative leadership, it's a set of behaviors, it's how you influence, it's not necessarily having a position of authority. So let's be clear about that. So started off as a book on creative problem solving, and given the trend that was happening within our own graduate program and our own curriculum, and the trend as we began to look at the leadership literature, one of the observations that we had was, wow, when you look at descriptions of current leadership theories like transformational leadership, you see terms that are common and concepts that are common in the field of creativity being invoked as descriptions of successful leadership in today's world. So it was afterwards, after we had started the book, that we realized, you know, what really the power potentially in creative problem solving is linking it to leadership and being explicit about how, as you're developing creative problem solving as a skill set, how it assists you in being more effective in positively influencing others, i.e. being a creative leader. And so an interesting part of the backstory is it didn't start off as a book on leadership at all. It really started off strictly as a book on creative problem solving, but sort of picking up on the trends, we realized that there was this important connection to make, to sort of broaden, if you will, the value of creative problem solving by being explicit about this link to leadership.
And I think
I'd like to add just a bit, if I may. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. I think one hopes, or at least I hoped when I was a student, that when you come to a place to study or study with people, that you are dealing with people who are thinking and who are thinking about new things or different things and taking risks about developing their thinking and what goes on. And so I just like to bring that part forward to everybody to say we are a practice field, and we are a partnership in theory and practice here at this center and in our program, but we have a strong grounding in practice. And as we did sit around that table that Marie talked about that night, which is literally a true story, you know, we realized that we had experience, that from our own practice, we knew some things that were working and some things that we thought weren't working, some things we thought could be made clearer and some things that could be improved, and some things that would make creative problem solving easier to learn and to work with. And so just as you are seeing now our continued thinking, which I hope that you hope we're doing, that nothing stays still, nothing remains static in all of that. So I just want to point out the thinking piece, and that really accounts, I think, too, for the change toward leadership. Because something that we saw in common was, wait a minute, what we're dealing with is change here across all of this. And that was a good connection for us. So I hope that you're able to see that, and I hope that, that you and other folks will continue their thinking and working on these connections with the Thinking Skills model.
one of the other things that I would add is that one of the things we felt as we were working on this book was that while we all understand the benefit of creative problem solving, and one of the things that we were trying to do in the book, it's not just about those who have the role of leader, but what if we could convince those who are leaders that they should actually look at creativity and creative problem solving as core competencies for their work as leaders, the impact that that could have. And in each of the chapters, we talk about, at the process chapters, we talk about key reasons why leaders need to be skilled at. And so we're really trying to be very explicit as why this would be beneficial to you. So that's the backstory.
And that's our story, and we're sticking to it.
And we're sticking to it.
Yeah.